All right, Dave, take it away.
Okay, well, welcome to the April 25th, 2023 session of Tangerine SDR and Hamside Technical Session. My name is Dave, KV0S, and this week I've been doing a number of things, working on building a few kits, and I've been reorganizing my shack and that kind of stuff, but then also a little bit of programming. And today we did some tree trimming, so, or at least I had a crew here tree trimming in the yard. So that's about it for me. Next on the list is Nathaniel, W2NAF. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Thanks, Dave. It's been a very, very busy week as always. Continuing to try to keep things moving, do lots of logistics. Trying to work with Tom and Majid and to continue trying to rebudget the Daisy grant and figure out what we need in terms of signal generators. So maybe during the open discussion, we can go back to signal generators with Tom and make sure I understand what we're doing with these tests and stuff like that. I have on another project I'm working on, the MSTID project and large scale traveling atmospheric disturbance project. I have some nice plots now that really show that you see a drop off in the large scale traveling atmospheric disturbances in the ham radio data, as the same time you see a drop off in the medium scale traveling atmospheric disturbances in the super darn data and in GPS TEC. And you see that also at the same time as a drop off in gravity waves in the lower neutral atmosphere measured by these two spacecraft. And you can see changes in the neutral wind directions in the stratosphere as well, all at the same time. So that's a really cool project that we're working on. Still a lot more to do with that, but it's coming along. So W2NF, back to net.
Oh, fine business. Next on the list is Mike, AA8K. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, thanks very much, and greetings to everyone listening. Back to you, Dave.
Well, fine business. And then we have Bob in 5BRG. Go ahead, Bob.
Hello, everyone. Doing fine here. I did receive the magnetometer kit on Friday and I started assembly. I've already got the parts put together. I had one of the two pin jumpers had broken off of the remote board or the board that's put with your Pi. And so that's a little bit of an issue. I can overcome that myself, but packing may be needing to be addressed a little more. And I'll give some feedback to the guys at Tapper on that. But anyway, that's all I have.
Very good. I did have an interesting thing today. I was out in the backyard and one of the Bobcat machines went within about 10 feet of my magnetometer. So we'll see if it made a blip in the readings. Anyway, next on the list is Dave McGaw in 1HAC. Go ahead, David.
Good evening, everyone on the net. Just the same old, working away at projects this week. But in the last day, been following this major geomagnetic storm and interested in its effects. Unfortunately, we have a big rainstorm on top of us, so didn't get to see anything of it visually, though I do understand that well, I do know someone here in this area down in Connecticut who got to see some through a break in the clouds. But I understand that the aurora got down to the Texas-Mexico border and reports from Flagstaff, Arizona. So
Wow.
sorry we missed it, but it will happen again. But the WWV was very much absorbed, still is. That has not recovered yet. We had 10 15 megahertz just a little while ago, but that's gone away again. So very interesting effects with the ionosphere right now. could hear CHU, which is of course closer and different propagation, but again, very weak. So this geomagnetic storm was really ramping up the absorption in the ionosphere in a big way. Hopefully we get more of these, but it looks like a good cycle. So I guess that's about it from here, other than we're getting drenched with rain. So back to net.
Very good. I hope you need the rain, maybe not, but anyway, next on the list is Dylan R. Go ahead, Dylan. Dylan, are you there?
Yes, I am. So today I think was a pretty productive day. Just got my driver's license today, and then also got a job. So now I just need to finish up some of the work papers to start working, and hopefully this Wednesday I should start working and hopefully saving up to come to the Dayton Hamvention. So I'm pretty stoked about that. And I don't have anything else, so I'll send it back to Net Control.
Very good. And thank you for responding to my emails, Dylan. I have contacted all the Tapper Forum speakers, and they're all on board and ready to present. So we're making headway on that. Next on the list is Jamal still?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead. And any comments you want to make?
Yeah, I'm here. Hello.
Hello.
So just falling asleep right now. My news is that I am a newbie in High Masai community. So in Egypt, I found a local club that's called ERAST, or Egyptian Radio Amateur Society for Development. I shortly began to contact them in order to know the time or batches of their sessions, in order to get prepared for the basic license for ham radio.
Well, very good.
That's a very
Welcome. It's
Thanks.
great to have you. I'm sorry it's the middle of the night for you, but
yeah.
That is really awesome that you're here.
Thank you, Dr. Nathaniel. Thank you. I was very happy by the presentation we have in Pennsylvania.
Thank you.
yes.
Yeah.
In the past, when we were doing the Open HPSDR, we would get Simon Brown from England, and it was only 1 o'clock for him to show up for the meeting. Anyway,
It's worth it.
yes. Next on the list is Hyomin Kim, KD2 MCR. Go ahead, Hyomin.
Hey, good evening, everyone. So yeah, it's been pretty busy. One of the highlights for this week is that Nathaniel visited the NJIT to be part of the PhD dissertation committee, where both of us actually serve for one of our students who just passed the thesis defense. So I met Nathaniel and his student Kuhn.
Mhm.
Kuhn? Yeah, Kuhn. Yeah. So it was great to see them. And other than that, I've been still working on the data portal for magnetometer data with Bill and his student Anderson and my student Zhao Shu. So things are coming along. Hopefully that can be done pretty soon. We're still just tailoring the data portal a little bit. There's some technical issues, not hard, but there are a lot of small things to take care of. But other than that, it's moving along. So back to that.
Well, very good. Next on the list is Jay Schwartz, WB8 at SBI. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Nathaniel, one administrative item. There was the refunds that were issued by University of Scranton for the HamSci conference. And I got my refunds appropriately. So that made it
Good.
through.
Good. That's really good. I knew that was going on in the background. I haven't been paying too much attention to it. But I knew that people were working on it, so I'm glad that it seems to be going through.
Okay. The only other thing is on FT8, I finally worked both Israel and Turkey on FT8. So, and last night, just to confirm what everybody else has done, as far as HF goes, the bands were dead. Where 20 meters these past several nights was open almost all night. Last night, 20, 40, 80, nothing, just pure noise. Nothing was going on. A pin drop was from 10 feet in a quiet soundproof room was more usable than what was coming in over the radio. So other than that, hope everybody is doing well. Take care, 7-3 to all, and catch you next time later on down the log. Back to net control.
Okay. Next on the list is Joe, W7LUX. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Dave, and good evening, everyone. Well, finished up much of the yard work, and I've been working on matching a hard to match antenna, learning how to do that with Smith charts and all that kind of stuff. So stayed busy here, and that's more than enough from Flagstaff. Thank you, Dave.
Okay. And next on the list is Jonathan, KC3EEY. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. So I've been pretty busy myself, actually, working on my article and figures for the space sciences article. I have also so I was able, so I forget if I mentioned this last week, but I found a breakout board for the U-Blocks Neo and Leo M8T. That's the timing receiver. I found it on GitHub, and there was a bomb and a silk screen file. All of the information needed to actually make this breakout board at JLC PCB. So I ordered 10 of them with all the components in JLC PCB's library. So that's all but like 5 components, including two or 3 jacks. And I was able to find these M8Ts on eBay used that were on cut PCBs. They shipped from China, but they were used. They were like $25. I've talked to other people on the GPSD support channel, and they have had good luck with them, but you know, we'll see. But that kind of prompted me in thinking that I could probably build VLF receivers and full systems for very cheap. So I mean, if I could get enough GPS modules and enough Raspberry Pi sound cards and lay out a board for the VLF receiver and all that, I could actually build a kit that I could send to people and put in strategic locations if they would like to install it, as long as they have a rural area and an internet connection. So I was thinking, well, you know, maybe I could build a couple of these and get them in the area where the eclipse will be. So I spoke to some people, Dave Kasdan and John Gibbons, about the possibility of putting a VLF receiver at Case Western. I spoke to Bob about his VLF receiver. I still owe him a script. He's actually working on a VLF receiver from that Morris worked on, his E-field receiver, which he published the information in a paper. So I'm trying to see if I could get, like a bunch of VLF receivers out in the field, and to be able to take data for the eclipse, and seeing what's feasible and what's not. Actually, there's not really a lot of money involved, so it's something that that a volunteer or a hobbyist could afford without breaking the bank. And also the intense storming activity last night was quite impressive. Now, unfortunately, I did not see any visible aurora, but there were some risers. There were actually about 5 or 6 discrete riser events that were captured from this storm. In the UK, there was a lot more captured, but they're at that receiver is at a much higher latitude than I am. So it was I thought that I would get a lot of radioactivity, but actually there really wasn't all that much. And I was thinking, why? How come that there wasn't a lot of dawn chorus activity, whereas, say, like back December 22nd, there was a much weaker storm and a lot of dawn chorus activity. So that's an interesting question. What kind of drives the intensity of dawn chorus? Lastly, I've been I noticed on the VLF receiver during periods of local thunderstorms and spherics, which can cause the VLF receiver to overload and clip. I noticed that Maine's harmonics sounded louder, and I sent an email about this to the group, and you can clearly see that the 180 hertz harmonic is increased quite a bit during the time of a local thunderstorm that we had on Saturday. So it made me wonder, what's going on. So there is some clipping going on with these spherics, and I'm trying to figure out how that is affecting the harmonics and why that it seems to make them louder. That's all I have. Back to the net.
Very good. Next on the list is Dave, KD0 EAG. Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, hello.
Hello,
you hear
we
me?
can hear you.
Okay. I not a lot to tell. Good to see everyone, and I've been plugging away at this and that, but nothing very exciting to tell. So back over to you.
Okay. Next on the list is Tom, N5EG. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, Dave. Hi, everybody in the groups. Was a difficult week. Not too much accomplished. So back to the group.
Okay. Well, I hope you feel better soon. So we'll keep thinking about you. I guess that's it. I don't see anybody that we've missed. So we're open for general discussion.
Um, so yeah, we went through the equipment, and so you said that the signal generators we have don't have enough spectral purity.
Yeah, that would be my take. If you're trying to measure the close in third order performance, the oscillators that you test with essentially have to be narrower than the separation you're trying to make the test measurement against.
Yeah.
So, but really that measurement is what I would call a characterization measurement.
Uh-huh.
Mean you only do it once or twice. It's it's not done on every unit. There's
Mhm.
not something you're going to change. You're trying to characterize the A to D, and the test is to make sure that you didn't mess something up.
Mhm.
One of those cases where you got to have high performing expensive equipment basically for one test or one test event.
Mhm.
And so that's one of those. The other generators you have are really good general purpose generators.
Yeah.
They're useful for doing a lot of things.
Mhm.
And so maybe those are something you can borrow for just doing the characterization. I don't
Mhm.
see what would, once characterized correctly, you wouldn't need to run the test again, because the only thing that would change it would be a design change that affected the inside of the A to D converter or the inside of the low noise ADC driver preamplifier chip. And if those are well controlled, those aren't likely to change once the receiver is characterized.
Right.
Now,
So
Tom, what do you consider the most important parameters? Phase noise, broadband noise?
Well, there's a bunch of parameters of the receiver, the noise figure and its third order. The oscillator noise is going to come out of the clock module. And John Ackerman, has by far the best test lab of anybody around for characterizing what that looks like. And I suspect any test that we might run on the receiver probably going to look a whole lot like whatever test he runs on the clock module. We'll
mhm.
get some differences due to aperture jitter and the A to D. There'll be some of those things, but that kind of test would be one I'd run in John's lab,
Mhm.
or John would run
Yeah.
in John's lab.
Yeah, partly why I'm asking is that, that you've mentioned the 8640, and I've got one of them. I've got an 8644B, which is even higher end synthesized one. Their harmonic characteristics aren't all that great. They're like -25, -30
Right.
dB below the carrier. But of course, their phase noise is very good.
Yes.
Either one of those, 8644 is sort of the real gold standard.
Yeah.
8640 is an earlier version that has very clean oscillator.
Yeah. Those two and the Marconi 2170,
Yep.
are the three real good test oscillators.
Yeah, it's
So-
good to have at least one of those around of some.
Mhm.
So-
In my view, it's one of those, for that one particular test,
Mhm.
that's really what you want, but it's an infrequently run test.
Yeah.
And,
Mhm.
so you hate to invest a ton of money for a test you're going to hardly ever use or do.
Yeah, but on the
Right.
other hand, for a college lab, it's good to have around. You'll use it for other things.
Yeah.
You're going to be
the
playing with receivers and whatnot.
other generators that Nathaniel's got in his lab are, they don't have the non-harmonic spectral purity, but they run circles around them in other ways.
Now, what do
terms
you
of-
have, Nathaniel?
Here, I'll bring up the list. Um, let's see. You can keep talking for a minute while I go get the list up.
Yeah, they're programmable. I remember one of them, I think you can program in arbitrary waveforms. So you can generate some
Yeah.
pretty interesting signals and signal constellations. I forget the other one. I was able
okay,
to find the spec sheets for all the generators, surprisingly.
Oh, the
enough.
8657 is a good one. That's actually a subset of the 8644 that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not actually an HP, the E4433.
Yeah.
That's probably Agilent, if not Keysight. That's a newer one and probably a pretty good one too.
Yeah, when I look at the two, I wrote down to Nathaniel, at least the spec sheet I could find online. I think the 4433 was like minus 60 dB non-harmonic spectral. The 8640 is better than minus 100. And the other one I remember being about minus 65. And hopefully I didn't type the wrong number and download the wrong data sheet. Let me minimize the screen here and go find my data sheets.
So
Yeah, so
Nathaniel,
those two generators, you got a good start on things there, Nathaniel.
Okay, I looked at the 8656.
Yeah.
And it's spec'd at let's see, it's non-harmonic is minus 60 dBc. So it's not a particularly clean close in, but it's real good in a whole bunch of other properties. And the other one I looked at was the Agilent 4431. And it is spec'd. This is nice. It's not scanned. You can actually read it without a magnifying glass. It's minus 65 dBc, non-harmonic. So the 8640, the Marconi, and the other one you mentioned are the real clean ones. And of course, John is probably one of the few hams on the planet. It's probably got something that is good enough better that he could measure the generators.
Right.
So Nathaniel, I would recommend that you develop a set of colleagues who are willing to test the boards and not just put this in one spot, but have multiple people test it, like John and maybe David, or maybe somebody in Phil Erickson's lab, or maybe somebody at Virginia Tech, or whatever other colleagues you have that have this equipment.
Well, I think that's probably not a problem. I guess I could start with David. David, would you mind doing some tests on these boards?
Not at all.
So, yes. So thank you very much, David. And yeah, I absolutely agree. We should do that. I think the question still remains. Let's see, is there anything else I need? I have about, right now I think I have about $24,000 remaining to budget. So
yeah, I'm trying to think of what other tests we would run. We'll characterize the clock independently. We'll probably want to measure the receiver for reciprocal mixing and noise, just in case the ADC chip degrades things. But if it doesn't, then the clock tests are going to measure. But I don't see other things on the list that would be needed. I think the good generators, in the ARRL test procedure, they use a super clean crystal oscillator to do reciprocal mixing test. And but then that again is a one-off piece of equipment. I haven't spent the time to go looking for those. But again, that would be a John in his lab would have something, he would have a better capability than anything you could find.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the classic analog measurements. Of course, SDRs aren't analogs, but they're the measurements you need to make. The rest of the measurements are ones which are more digital and pattern in nature. You know, do you get non-linearities out of the A to D converter? You know, do the codes coming out, are they monotonic and all that kind of good stuff? Those are measurable by the receiver in FPGA and GNU radio, actually. And so I didn't mention GNU radio. I was assuming that you'd have in the lab all of that already. And if you don't, you know, you could add that to the list, but in my view, that'd be available, you know, for little or no cost for pretty much any lab.
Right. Yeah, we have that.
Yeah. So, right, you know, so you have an A to D and you're trying to measure its nonlinearity. You're trying to measure its, you know, is it missing codes? Are the codes monotonic? Does it go into and out of overload correctly? But all of those are easy to measure in GNU radio. So I feel, you know, probably 90% confident in the test equipment list that we've developed so far.
Which, yeah, again, basically we have everything except for these really high quality signal generators.
Yeah, the kind of tests are rarely run by anybody except two cases, hams, and they were run in the old analog microwave telephone carrier systems, but they ran them differently. They would use noise notch measurements on sideband in the FM radio. So they're unusual measurements, and I think that's why you don't see those kind of specs available anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's mostly hams that really worry about it.
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, so I'm looking at some of these, like here's a used.
So just, Nathaniel, the manual you were just looking at, is that the 2011?
No, it's
one?
a 2021.
Oh, there's a 2020.
Yeah. I poked around their website a little bit. So
Oh, okay. That's a newer one.
2020, it's a slightly newer one.
You have the link to that one?
I can just, it might just be easier if I email you this. And I did a Google search and then I found it on the ARRL website and they're testing, and I'll just forward this to you. So if I wanted to buy some of this equipment, it looks like the ones that are from these used dealers run between like $1,000 and $3,000, which seems quite reasonable.
Yeah, if it were me, and I was equipping a lab, I would make sure that the generators were performant, you know, into the 6 gigahertz range, maybe. The reason is in the future, a lot of your students are going to be working on, you know, 2 and 6 gigahertz radio projects.
Yeah.
And so
the 2.4 and 5.8 for Wi-Fi.
so,
right. Well, so I guess
they're gonna find those things real helpful.
Right. So I mean, I guess this is also, I do have some money, so this is also possibly an opportunity to buy new things. So does it make sense? So if I wanted one of those brand new, am I talking like $10,000 a unit?
Oh,
Depends
gosh.
on the unit and it depends on the academic discount.
Yeah. If I wanted to buy, if I wanted to buy 2 new generators today that were really appropriate, it would set us up for a while. What would you say to go buy?
That's a good question. The person I would ask that question of is Tom Holmes,
Okay.
N8ZM.
Yes.
Tom was a sales rep for Hewlett Packard before he retired. And he's a guy who is a rare combination probably of understanding the performance as well as the pricing. Of course, he's been retired for a few years. But that's his opinion would be a real good opinion there.
Okay.
Another company to look at is Roden Schwartz.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you can get a hold of Ulrich Road, I'm sure he's got some opinions.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure he does.
Yeah. So you got two folks there who are unusually well qualified.
Yes. I guess I was hoping before I went to Ulrich, I was hoping to make sure I have a better understanding of what I was asking for.
Yeah, that you may want to talk to Tom Holmes. I'll get you his contact information.
Yeah.
Well, another thing, speaking of Ulrich, is you may want to pick up one of his books on communications receiver design.
He gave me one of those. So
Well, there you
have that.
go.
Yeah. I
Take a
have
look
it.
at what it uses for characterization.
Ulrich Rohde is November 1 Uniform Lima.
Yeah.
Correct. He was
And
just
I've
on
worked him on
FT8 earlier.
FT8.
I saw him.
He's active on FT8.
Yeah, he was on earlier this evening.
Yeah.
But I didn't bother him because I'd already gotten the contact.
Yeah. No, he's nice. Oof. No, I have that material. Just haven't had time to go through it. There's a lot of things to do. But I can dialogue. So, all right. So let me see here. Let me go back to this email that you sent me, Tom. Okay, I know you have a test plan that you have posted to GitHub, right,
Yes.
Tom? Yeah. Now that test plan, does that lists all of these analog tests as well as the digital ones?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
What it does is it lists from the project point of view what needs to be implemented in the FPGA
Right.
firmware to run the test, but it doesn't outline the tests you run once you have a working load.
Okay.
And
so
and-
everything that's in your test plan on there can just be done as long as we have like Fortis licenses and hardware and GNU radio. We don't need any like actual test equipment, right?
Correct, but the tests outlined in that test plan, the 1B test is to use the wideband burst mode. And it talks about that. It doesn't say what tests you would run, except to say that you will, collect vectors of samples, heavily filter them, and then look for spurious sampling responses. But it doesn't talk about, from an analog point of view, how to do that. When the test plan was written, it was assumed that somebody would know how to do that. And the 1C test is you implement a synchronous down converting receiver, and then you do things like measure third order and measure noise figure. Again, it doesn't talk about how to do that or what test equipment. It talks more about how you architect the FPGA firmware so that those kind of tests can be run. And so the document's very much focused on the FPGA firmware and implementation.
Yeah.
So I
Right.
haven't written up, the ARRL has a good test plan there.
Right,
And
which is
it might be
so
you could do a cut and paste out of that and amplify the Tangerine test plan, which says implement test phase 1C and then run the following 4 or 6 tests from the ARRL test plan. That would be a good way to document it.
I guess that would be really helpful to know if we're looking. So this is the ARRL test
Yeah.
plan right here. So
Mhm.
here's a list of receiver tests.
Right.
Out of these, can you recommend which ones we should run?
I would need to spend a little time taking a look. For
Okay.
an SDR, a lot of the tests probably don't make sense. And, like the S-meter test,
Right.
although you want to make sure that the digital values of the sample are correctly related, you wouldn't run it like you would on an analog receiver. So
Mhm.
for an SDR, a bunch of them fall out. And I think there's probably 5 or 6 important ones. Let me spend a little time trying to outline by test case which ones are probably the best ones to run.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of the more important ones, of course, is noise floor and the two-tone second, third order dynamic range.
Yeah, but like
There are
the
going to
first
be various
IF
other
rejection-
intermod type of tests we'll want to do with a A to D. One interesting one is they have receiver processing delay time. We are going to want to have that characterized, but that will change depending upon what digital filtering we implement.
Yeah, the way that we'd run that in an SDR would be, I'm going to guess, entirely differently than how ARRL would run it on an analog receiver. It will depend, on the sampling rate. All of those things will change it. It's an important number. I think we talked about it maybe a month or 2 ago. It's an important number. I'm going to guess the way we'd measure it would be a little different.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you had just FIR filters in the receiver, the delay would be constant with offset. But when you concatenate CIC and FIR filters, you're going to get group delay ripple. And so the number will change depending on the offset frequency. It's a good test to run. And like Dave says, it's an important test to run. But we'll have to look at it. It may need to be just run differently.
Yeah, depending upon how we're running this with front end filters, we will want to do image tests.
Yeah, the filters right now, we laid out an AM broadcast band reject filter. And the test you might run there, of course, is does it go into overload, or do you saturate the magnetics in the filter? And things like that. For other filters, you might ask, what's the pass band, right? Do you get 300 megahertz, aliasing through the filter, something like that.
Yeah, and of course, we'll want to test at various frequencies within the Nyquist band, because if you're down at the low end, it's different than if you're up close to Nyquist.
Yeah. So anyway, let's put that document together. Dave, would you review that when I get it put together? Okay.
You have the ARRL test manual, right, Tom?
Yeah, you sent it in the email, and I really appreciate that. Was about 12 years newer than the one I had.
That's good. Yeah. And this is an email I got from Ed Hare last Wednesday in response to my email. He said there are a lot of good signal generators available on the used market, with eBay probably being the easiest way to find a number of them. I do note, however, that many of the ones I see on eBay are often being sold as parts only or untested, which usually indicates a problem. What is your budget for the purpose? What is your budget for the purchase? What do you intend to test? To test dynamic range RST, we will need 2 generators and a hybrid coupler. With the HP 8640B generators, this is typically good enough to measure about 102 dB of two-tone third order IMD dynamic range. For years, this was good enough for the ARRL lab, but as receivers improved, we had to go to more complex methods of making that measurement. You may want to download the test procedures manual from the ARRL website and or get a copy of the now out of print book by WB1GCM on ARRL lab testing.
Yeah, on a 14-bit converter that with 12 affected bits, you're going to be 100. You're not going to get to 102 dB.
Mm-hmm. So we don't have to
Well,
worry about that.
It depends.
Okay.
Well, I guess, and I mean, part of it is like, where he's like, what is the budget for your purchase? I feel like if I could get generators, you know, for between $7,000 to $10,000, and I know that these are going to really set up our lab for the next, you know, X number of years. I mean, maybe that's a really smart purchase. You know, if they're $20,000 each, and you need 2 of them, well, that maybe doesn't make a lot of sense. But if I could get brand new ones for like $7,000 to $10,000 each, maybe that's worth it. I feel like this whole going down eBay parts only untested is not the way we should be going as a university with a grant.
Yeah, and 8640s
Yeah.
on eBay are more often broken than not.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
really have to know what you're looking at. Pull things off of eBay. I've done it, but
Yeah.
buyer beware. Much more
So-
reasonable is to go to a reputable used equipment dealer.
Yeah.
Like Test Equipment Depot is one that I
Mm.
know that's in Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
There are a number of them that they don't immediately come to mind, but they've been in business a long time. They're not cheap prices, but they're reasonable prices. Like the types of generators we were just talking about from HP, Agilent, are anything from well, like your 57 is, I think it was like $1,200. No, 18. It's $1,900.
Yeah.
And the higher end one, as I said, the 8644 is $4,000.
Yeah.
So that's the range that you're going to be looking at.
Right. And I mean, at that, like if you could get, I mean, maybe going from a used dealer makes sense if it comes like, if it's certified and you know it's going to work and really do the job.
Right.
You know, then getting 2 things at $4,000 each is really no problem at all.
Yeah. And when you buy it from them, they come with a certificate of compliance or whatever.
Yeah.
They're calibrated.
Yeah. But I think so I haven't responded back to Ed yet, but I think this question, what do you need to test? And I guess it keeps going back to this.
So you might get back to him with a budget that you think is reasonable.
Yeah.
And he'll give you some suggestions.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Let me make a couple of comments on this. I would think about, just generally, think about the science and what do you want out of this radio and what's it going to deliver to you and what's important to be sure to understand.
Right.
And then on the second
Well, one
side,
of the things about that is we're going to have very strong signals and very weak signals in the same passband. So things like dynamic range and noise floor are very important.
okay, and then the next issue is how do you compare with other SDRs that are out there as you come out? And that, if you read Ed's email, see, he's saddled with the task of testing a radio that somebody manufactures. And he knows that hams are going to want to know, how does it compare with other people's radios? Or they may want to argue that, you know, their radio has a better performance than this radio. And of
Right.
course, the manufacturer is in the same boat. He wants to brag about the characteristics of his radio.
Right.
In your testing plan, you probably should include one or two other SDRs if it's convenient enough to do it. You can get in a mode where you have to develop a bunch of code that will run on two different units. It takes time to do that. But like an Edis Research SDR, you know, if you don't, you know, and you come out and you got this SDR and you got people turning their nose up because it doesn't perform as well as two other units that are readily available that are cheaper. You know, that's what you hear in the market. So you have
You
to,
know, certainly the Edis USRPs are going to be something we will directly compare it to.
yeah. And so what you can do is get their data sheet, you know, and maybe they're going to not spec everything that you're going to be interested in testing, but make sure that you've at least tested what they say they're testing and guaranteeing. And how do you compare? Plus, it gives you a benchmark if your equipment is really doing what it's
Well,
supposed to
we'll
do.
actually be able to compare them directly, since a number of us have such equipment available.
Yeah. And most of the time when you buy equipment like this, it sits in your lab for a while before it ever gets used. So like these people you buy from will have limited type arrangements, but your idea of buying new and going with original manufacturer, typically they do give educational discounts that are really significant, and they'll stand behind it better than you are going to find anyplace else.
I agree, and I think I do potentially have the budget to, you know, go for something like that.
You just have to have the right champion in that company that you're dealing with to help you push it along, though.
Right.
Too.
Right.
You
I
want to
think
be sure and deal with your local salespeople that
Yeah.
cover your area, because they're going to be more interested in you than some other sales guy that somebody happens to know in another region.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Tom, do you think would you be able to come up with this test plan?
Yeah, I'll draft a document and then I'll send it to you and David for comment and review.
Okay. You can
Yeah.
include Majid on this too,
Okay,
because
I
he's
will.
aware of this.
We'll do that.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah.
Hyomin, did you want, Hyomin, are you there still?
Yep, I'm still here.
Yeah, did you want to talk any more about the magnetometer portal, or you think you're good for now?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think we are sort of like short-staffed right now. I guess the student who is in charge of the developing data portal is about to leave soon. He's graduating. Oh no, I don't know if he's graduating. Anyways, over the summer he will be gone for the study abroad program, so he will not be there for long. So anyways, the temporary solution for now is to provide some kind of survey plot.
Right.
Probably Nathaniel knows about this very well, because if you look at like any type of spacecraft mission website or some small ground-based instrument website, you will always see survey plot that is like a pre-generated plot that is posted online, so that you don't really process data. You just basically see the post-processed survey plot, usually 24 long, so that people can, you know, skim through the data pretty quickly. So I think that's what we should aim for, rather than trying to make the portal really fancy and very adaptive, whatever. I mean, that can be done for sure, but I think
But
given
not
the
this
time that we
round.
have, given the resources that we have, I don't think that's gonna be possible.
Yeah.
In the very near future.
Right.
So, but that direction can be much more feasible. So what happens is that once we get the data, say from Nathaniel's magnetometer data, then we get the data, download it, and process 24 survey plot and post online, so that you guys can just download the data, Nathaniel's data and Nathaniel's survey plot right away. And in the near future, it is more desirable to combine the survey plot with, say, Nathaniel's tangerine or grape data, so that you can see the full context in a much faster way. You don't even have to do any interactive, user interface. You can just click and
Yeah,
see.
just click.
Yeah, I just want to
go
see
through the-
Nathaniel's station, then just see 24 plot.
Yeah.
I think that is really feasible, given
Mhm.
what we have right now. Also, I think that has to be done anyways, even though we have other fancy functionality in the works. But I think
Yeah.
that survey plot functionality has to be there anyways.
I agree.
Yeah.
So-
And a lot of scientists use that functionality very often, just to look through what was happening yesterday, what was happening on March 17, whatever. So
Yeah.
So Hillman, could I suggest that we try to put together, when we have more recorders, a graph like the Europeans do as far as latitude and magnetometers? So they have a stacked day-long magnetometer.
sure.
So the X is a day, and then up and down the graph is latitude, but just their graphs stacked.
Right. That's how I envision. The problem is that we will not have fixed number of stations, right? The
No.
number of stations will increase, so you cannot have
But-
fixed number of stack plot.
Well,
So-
at some point,
that
you're
can be
gonna have to
adjusted.
limit it.
Dynamically too.
Yes. So let me share one example, if I'm allowed to share.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
this is DTU. This is one example. So if you go to DTU, Danish Technical University website, where they have a chain of magnetometers in the west coast of Greenland, then there's a stack plot here.
Yeah.
Then this is pre-made plot. So each component, different component. This is from West Coast station all the way from high to low station. So if you click, then you'll see stations all the way from high to low light for 24 hours. And with the same scale, this much is 100 nanotesla, so that you can see the full context. The only problem of our problem is that these stations will be variable, right? So
Right.
but maybe we can keep adding things.
Yeah,
As we
one thing
have
I
more-
would suggest you be able to do is have check boxes for those stations, so you can select ones to plot
Yeah.
rather than plotting them all on top of each other.
Right. Yeah, that functionality is also on our to-do list.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I mean, right now the way you'd be doing it is you'd have a server side script probably doing canned plots every night at a certain time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, if you wanted to do stack plots like this, you could, once you have all the stations in the database, you'll have the latitudes and longitudes. You could just do like, I don't know, 3 separate sets of stack plots, one for the East Coast US, one for the Central, one for the West Coast of the US / North America. And then you
Yeah,
could just
that's a good idea.
automatically sort it by latitude, and as new stations appear, they just automatically get added in. Just,
Yes, yes, we can maybe cluster them, like, in terms of like locations and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, you
Yeah.
should just divide the world up into longitudinal sectors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yep.
Yeah, maybe either 30 or probably 30 degrees is good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
30 or 45 degrees.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, different ideas are welcome. But basically for now, I think we need to aim for something that can be done quickly.
Yes.
Right. Well, okay. On a
I think.
side. Okay, go ahead, Nathaniel.
Oh, I was just say that sounds good. Good human.
Okay. Well, anyways, I mean, since we're sharing the screen that shows like Greenland here, I actually spoke with a professor from University of Oslo today. We had a very fun conversation, and as a side note, he said, "Oh, I'll be gone for 1 month for vacation." He said that, and then he said he'll be completely offline. He will not have any access to email. So how come? And he said this is like once in a lifetime kind of dream. So he really wanted to do this. So what he's gonna do is to fly from Oslo to Kangerlussuaq, the major location of Greenland here, and he will actually go to this station, AMK station, on foot all the way.
Wow.
For 1 month, and then fly to Iceland and then go back to Oslo. So this will, from here to here, will take like 1 month on foot with
who
no
is this?
motorized vehicle, just on foot. So that's his plan.
Who is this?
This person, Bosch.
I'll check. Let me look.
That's great.
That's
Yeah.
physics.
We have some collaborators.
Effective physics.
You know Lassie, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is
he
where
was-
Lassie is. This is where Lassie is listed here. And Jorn Moren,
Oh yeah.
yep. Auroral scientist.
Mhm.
Anyway, I think this is pretty long. So anyway,
Lassie was a postdoc when I was a graduate student. in my
right.
lab.
So Lassie, Moen,
then-
and this person, they are
Sure.
geospace physicists. Yep.
And Joran was one of my professors when I studied in Svalbard.
Mhm. Yes. He said he will be going to, he might go to Svalbard this summer, and then I'll be going to Svalbard too. So
Oh great.
Yeah.
Juha, I think is up in Svalbard right now.
Oh, okay.
I just saw on his Strava today that he did a 7-mile ski hike up Trollsteinen.
What's he doing in Svalbard?
I don't know. I just know that he's on Strava and Svalbard.
Interesting. Yeah, because
So-
he's at University of Tromsø.
Right.
First time I was there like 15 years ago, more than 15 years ago. I was given 2 guns right away. Hey, just here's the gun, just use whatever. I had a flare gun, and then I have a real rifle. By the way, that gun came from oh my God, Ruger from New Hampshire. What's
Really?
the name of town?
Storm Ruger.
Newport? No.
Yeah, Newport, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
It's 10 o'clock. I'm gonna close the recording
Okay.
now.
Anyway, yep.